2019 is upon us, and like the start of every new year, we like to cobble together all of the games to look forward to for whatever console you play on in the upcoming year. So we're bringing you 40 new games coming for Xbox One in 2019. Let's get started off with number 40 and talk about Outer Wilds. Not to be confused with the Outer Worlds. This is a different game. This is kind of like a more indie, more artsy version of something like No Man's Sky. It's heavy on space exploration. It's being published by Annapurna Interactive, who lately has been killing it, putting out really different, unconventional indie games, and the Outer Wilds looks promising. Next up at number 39, let's talk about Tropico VI. This is dropping earlier in the year, and it brings a lot of improvements to the Tropico franchise, which is a really good one. As a fan of city builders and RTS and management style games, Tropico has always had a very different spin, being somewhat of like a dictator simulator in a way, but also having a really good sense of humor to it. Tropico 6 is boasting a revived research system. They're bringing back election speeches. It's also going to have online multiplayer for up to 4 players, which has huge potential if you know these types of games. And it's just going to have a lot more customization and player control this time around. The way we look at it is that as if it's as much fun as Tropico 4 and 5, Tropico 6 should be pretty awesome. And it's one of the few games of this style that are just really decent to play on console, fairly well optimized for a controller, so it's going to be good on Xbox. Next at number 38, we have a game you may not have heard of called Devil's Hunt. This is a third-person action-adventure game based on a novel that kind of deals with a lot of angels and demons, good and evil type stuff, and it's got lots of really cool like demonic melee action to it. Most interestingly enough, the game is heavily focused on story and narrative. Interestingly enough, the marketing page for it boasts that it has 100 high-quality cutscenes, some of up to 2 hours in length. So if you are a story-based player, this could be right up your alley. It's launching on Steam and Xbox One later in this year, and honestly, we hope it's good because it sounds cool on paper. Next up at number 37, we have Digimon Survive, which we're including on this list for those of you out there who are still Digimon fans, because we know you're out there, and this looks like a pretty solid entry. The battle system looks cool, the animation is gorgeous, and it's apparently going to be one of the more complex Digimon games, so there's that. But next up at number 36, we have ToeJam and Earl, Back in the Groove. Just the fact that this game exists is absolutely huge. I don't know if you guys grew up with this style of game, but the earlier ToeJam and Earl games are pretty legendary for a reason. Really just their style, their attitude, and their appeal more than the actual gameplay itself. And Back in the Groove seems to be bringing things back into a groove. I don't know, it's got the same type of early 90s hip-hop and style and aesthetic and vibe. It's got the music, it's got the look, it's got a lot of the people behind the original 1991 game, and it's cobbling up a bunch of elements from console games and classic games, and it seems like it could be awesome. It's got over 30 music tracks, a lot of which are licensed, and 9 playable characters. We're keeping our eye on this one just because of the pedigree alone. Now at number 35, we have A Plague Tale: Innocence, another game that you may not have heard of, but the concept is really interesting. This is an adventure story-based game focusing around 2 siblings surviving through 14th century France in the middle of a plague. It's got some action, it's got a lot of sneaking around, and honestly, just the idea of it taking place in a plagued France I think is really interesting. It is being published by Focus Home Interactive, which, you know, makes all different types of games, some pretty interesting and different, some horrible, but just from what we've seen so far, it looks pretty gorgeous. And like a medieval story-based game in like a very grim setting that is also realistic just seems like a good idea. Now at number 34, speaking of games published by Focus Home Interactive, one of the good ones was The Surge, and now we're getting The Surge 2 in 2019. These games are awesome and addictive and take some of elements of Dark Souls games and really brings it to a new level in terms of limb targeting, armor building, and just general sci-fi awesomeness. The original was incredibly challenging and lengthy, and it looks like we're getting a lot more of that in The Surge 2, as well as just vastly different environments. Considering the first game took place mostly in like a factory wasteland style thing, The Surge 2 definitely seems like it stands out more, and we hope it's as good as the first one, if not way better. Now next at number 33, we have Wasteland 3. These games are legendary for a reason, and after Wasteland 2 and the massive success it was, and kind of like a return, it's really nice to see that Wasteland 3 is dropping, and it's going to be on consoles. These are classic PC-style RPGs with turn-based combat, but this one's going to take place in the frozen wastelands of Colorado after an apocalyptic event. You got new characters, you got new groups, and ideally new mechanics. It is being developed by the people who brought us Torment: Tides of Numenera, and the fact that it is coming to Xbox we do think is really cool, so keep an eye out for that if you are into this style of game. Wasteland 3 is going to be dropping sometime in 2019. Now, next up at number 32, we have Dirt Rally 2.0. The original Dirt Rally is one of the best racing games ever, so we're so excited to see Dirt Rally 2 drop in this year. Compared to the mainline Dirt games, Dirt Rally games are even more challenging, a little bit more realistic, and just more intense. And Dirt Rally 2.0 looks like it's going to continue that trend. The big thing in this one is more emphasis on tuning, more cars than ever, and developing your own racing team. And you know what? Rally races are just awesome and fun, and they always have been in the Dirt games, so here's looking forward to this one. But at number 31, we have Dead or Alive 6. Yes, remember Dead or Alive? Well, it's back. This Team Ninja classic fighting game is making a return with kind of like a new design, freshened up characters. The game looks pretty damn good. Characters are now going to show more damage. There's a couple new mechanics. Apparently, they're also going to be making it a little bit more accessible for newcomers, but there's still going to be enough mechanics that are difficult to master. Generally, what it looks like here is that they're going to be focusing and doubling down on the gameplay itself. There is going to be a plot to play through and experience if you are into that type of thing. Maybe you're just more into the Dead or Alive spin-off games, but still, it's nice to see yet another classic fighting game returning for this console generation. So we're keeping our eye on Dead or Alive 6, man. But at number 30, we have Ace Combat 7, Skies Unknown. These games often, no pun intended, fly under the radar, but Ace Combat games have always been incredibly satisfying because while they look like just generic flight simulator action games, there's actually a story and a lot more style and awesome action to it than you'd expect. This is a Japanese game through and through, and once you actually get your hands on it, you can tell, and that's a good thing. This one will have 2-player local multiplayer, which in this generation of consoles is kind of a rarity, so that's cool. It's also the first game in the series to be running on Unreal Engine 4, so it looks really damn good. And apparently, if you get it on Xbox One, you'll get the Xbox 360 Ace Combat 6 to play through the Xbox backwards compatibility thing. So there's a lot of value there for a game that on the surface might not look that cool, but they are a ton of fun, trust me. But over at number 29, we have Jump Force, the fighting game that brings together many people's beloved anime characters in one big place for them all to punch each other. The game features various characters featured in a weekly Shonen Jump anthology, and it's a 3-on-3 tag team fighting game that just has lots of dudes, of course. It's got Naruto, it's got Luffy, it's got Goku, it's got Bleach characters, it's got a bunch of other Dragon Ball Z characters, and it puts them in a very interesting, realistic cityscape setting with some pretty detailed visuals, and it's very interesting to see a lot of these characters with different art styles come to life in this unified way. I think this is a game very much for a specific type of fan. Maybe you're not a big anime manga person, but I think for those of you that are, this is definitely going to scratch some sort of itch you got. Because next at number 28, we have a game called Sea of Solitude. You play as a girl named Kay who explores this sunken city that's half underwater. This is being published under EA's indie title thing called EA Originals, and it's a very personal project for the developers. Apparently it deals a lot with fear and emotion and becoming a monster yourself. It did make quite a splash when it was first revealed a couple of years ago, so we're hoping that the project has really panned out because apparently early 2019 is when we're going to see it. Now next at number 27, we have Skull and Bones. This is Ubisoft's answer to more Assassin's Creed pirate games without Assassin's Creed attached, and more of an emphasis on multiplayer battling and stuff like that. Basically, if you like pirates and you like ship battling, but you don't like Sea of Thieves, Skull and Bones might be your thing. It's a bit more of a realistic take, and so far it does seem to be shaping up to be pretty interesting. It seems like they might be treating it sort of like a For Honor, but on boats in terms of how it's set up multiplayer-wise and community-wise, but it's still a ways out, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot more from it soon. Regardless, it's pirates, so we're looking forward to it, if we're honest. Next up at number 26, we have World War Z, a multi-platform game that should be dropping this year. It's been in development for a while, and people keep saying, wow, really? They're making a World War Z video game? But surprisingly, it looks fairly impressive. It's got hordes and hordes of zombies rushing towards characters, sort of like the movie version, but it seems to be trying its own thing, because I mean, Brad Pitt's not in it. But what we do get here looks to be like a multiplayer Left 4 Dead style shooter. And I know we've said that before. We were hoping that the Overkill Walking Dead game would be like that, but this really does look like a third-person Left 4 Dead type of thing, and I really hope it pans out to be good, because we definitely need something like that. And thankfully, we should have our answer when it launches later in 2019. Now at number 25, we have Control. This is Remedy Entertainment's new game. The guys behind, Alan Wake, Quantum Break, Max Payne, so we are absolutely looking forward to Control. This looks to be a shooter that is a little bit more trippy and cerebral, and judging from the teasing and the trailers we have gotten, it looks like Remedy is still going to be focusing on narrative, which we're really happy to see. It revolves around like an otherworldly, trippy threat, and only you can solve it as the female lead. It's being published by 505 Games, and as far as we know right now, it is dropping sometime in 2019, so look forward to that. Next at number 24, we have Dauntless. This is a free-to-play action RPG from Phoenix Labs. It has had some alphas and some betas, and we have seen it teased at various events, to varying degrees of excitement. If anything, a decent free-to-play game on your Xbox would be nice in 2019, just to kind of shake things up. It's a fantasy setting, and it's got lots of weapons and giant monsters and all that stuff. But to me personally, it looks a little bit generic. But on the flip side, there is apparently going to be raids and hunts that take a long time and require a lot of teamwork. Thankfully, it can be played single player, or you can play cooperatively with 4 people. And apparently the grind the game has and the thrill of the hunt has been inspired by Monster Hunter games. So, I think if there's any game you should take inspiration from, it should be Monster Hunter, and that's awesome. At number 23, we have Biomutant, an action RPG where you play as like a little pissed off raccoon boy. I don't know, but it's being published by THQ Nordic. It's dropping sometime in mid-2019, and you kind of create your little raccoon character. There's armor, there's different weapon types, and a lot of RPG elements in fairly large environments for you to explore. Honestly, it seems really unconventional, but all of the elements it seems to be taking from other games seems like it might be a good combination for something really special. We don't know for sure though. There is gameplay out there. As you can see, it does look pretty action oriented, and however the RPG mechanics really turn out to be, it does look like it's a lot of fun, so we're keeping our eye on it. But next at number 22, don't forget this year we're getting a Wolfenstein spin-off with Wolfenstein Youngblood. This apparently takes place in a far-off, alternate future with BJ Blazkowicz's 2 twin daughters hunting Nazis and just doing Wolfenstein stuff. It's the 80s in this weird Wolfenstein universe, and thankfully it's a cooperative adventure if you want. So expect lots of shooting, lots of guns, lots of gore, and lots more Wolfenstein, which I'll always take. Whether it's an expansion or a sequel or a spin-off, I'm there. And it seems like a lot of people are, and it's coming from Bethesda and Machine Games once again, who are great developers, so keep your eye on it. But speaking of things to keep your eye on, I've probably been saying that a lot in this video. Number 21, we have Trials Rising. Man, the Trials games are really good, and Trials Rising looks to be no different. That's really the honest, straightforward truth, if I'm telling you. These games are fun and addictive 2.5D physics-based racing games. While they might look dumb just from gameplay, you have to feel it. Like playing it with a controller, you really get why these games are so fun. This is actually the first main game since 2014's OK Trials Fusion. We're hoping that this one really kicks ass. It's gonna have this awesome local multiplayer mode called Tandem Bikes, where 2 people control the same motorcycle. And while it's gonna once again have a lot of emphasis on multiplayer and leaderboards and stuff like that, the thing I'm most excited for is the new environments. Every map here that we've seen so far looks absolutely intense, so we can't wait. Now next at number 20, we have Crash Team Racing Nitro Refueled. Now for a lot of you kids out there who maybe didn't have a Nintendo 64, the 1999 Crash Team Racing game was basically your Mario Kart. So for a lot of people, this is really, really exciting to be getting a remastered, cleaned up version of it here in 2019. Similar to last year, how we got a nice, good-looking new version of the old Crash Bandicoot games. We're gonna be able to jump back into CTR and run some cups June 21st, 2019. Next at number 19, we have a little game called Anthem. Anthem is, of course, BioWare's big, new, huge project, and for a lot of us out there, we think it might be BioWare's big attempt to kind of, restore some faith in it. After a lot of people were disappointed by Mass Effect Andromeda, Anthem could be the one to save it all, not just for, fan appreciation, but also for EA itself, who you never know what studio they're gonna close. BioWare, of course, have always been legendary and masterful designers of RPGs with deep narratives, and Anthem seems to be going a different direction with a lot of combat and a lot of games as a service stuff, similar to something like Destiny, a lot of grinding, a lot of looting, a lot of shooting, but it does let you fly around in what looks kind of like Iron Man suits, and that looks like a fun mechanic in and of itself. As someone who mostly plays and mostly preferred to play BioWare games completely alone, I don't know what to really think of Anthem yet, and that's kind of weird considering the game is dropping soon, but we'll have to just decide when we get it in our hands, because it's dropping February 22nd, 2019. Wow, this one is taking longer than I expected. But next at number 18, we have Dying Light 2, a surprise sequel to a game that was surprisingly awesome. We really hope this one releases this year. Essentially, it's more Dying Light, but you're getting a vastly bigger world. Now, Chris Avellone, the famous RPG writer formerly of Obsidian, is doing a lot of the scenario and quest system stuff here. There's apparently going to be a lot of emphasis on different decisions that you make that will actually shape the world in front of you. And the original Dying Light was criminally underrated. Seriously, there's still time to check it out before this one, but we're really looking forward to Dying Light 2 and hoping it definitely makes it for 2019. But moving on to number 17, we have Code Vein, a kind of anime-inspired Dark Souls-style game that also involves vampirism and just a cool art style. This one has been anticipated for quite a while, and it has been delayed here and there, but essentially it's an action game in a post-apocalyptic setting with some really unique-looking characters. But apparently people in the game get certain supernatural abilities or gifts from consuming blood, and apparently that ties into gameplay. It's a very Bandai Namco-ass game, and we're all about it. We're looking forward to it, and it seems like 2019 is finally going to be the year we get our hands on it, because it was supposed to drop September 2018 and it never did, so this has got to be the year. But speaking of games where it's got to be this year, at number 16 we got that Battletoads game that Microsoft and Xbox teased at E3. The first Battletoads game was dropped in 1991, and it's got a lot of old hardcore fans actively anticipating something new, and it seems like it was always kind of like this pet idea or project from Microsoft. And yep, now we are getting a new Battletoads game in 2019. These were always challenging and intense, awesome action games with a dumb style, kind of like a similar attitude to something like Ninja Turtles. That's all we really know. We know it's going to be a reboot. It's going to be a PC, Xbox One game. It's developed by Diala Studios and Rare. And 2019 is supposed to be the year, so we hope it's awesome. But moving over to number 15, we have Doom Eternal. This is, of course, the sequel to the new and improved and revived Doom game from a few years ago that was absolutely awesome and incredible. And Doom Eternal looks to be stepping things up quite a bit with more movement options in the environment, a killer grappling hook thing on the Doomslayer's arm, a little bit more story, a little bit more tongue-in-cheek humor, and the game really just embracing itself more than ever. 2016's Doom was so awesome that we really just can't help but be more excited for Doom Eternal. If it's more of the same, I hate to say it, I still might probably be okay with it, because after I finished 2016 Doom, I just wanted more. I know a lot of you guys out there probably feel the same, and thankfully we'll know for sure when it drops in late 2019. Next at number 14, we have Rage 2, the sequel to a game not a lot of people were really into, but it seems like Bethesda is really spinning things around this time and not taking the game as seriously, and especially considering this is a post-apocalyptic open-world first-person shooter in a sea of other games that have those words tacked onto them as well. This one has to do a hell of a lot to stand out, and so far it looks like it's doing a good job from the story and the gameplay and the trailers we have seen. It does have a little bit more of a cool attitude to it and just a lighthearted vibe, while also still having really good graphics and raw, punchy shooting, considering we've also been playing things like Doom. Really hoping this one's good, because we could use a good shooter like this. We'll find out for sure May 14th, 2019. Next at number 13, we have Mortal Kombat 11. It looks like there's going to be alternate character dimensions and time travel maybe, and the ability to customize and build out your own Mortal Kombat character, similar to how you could armor up your Superman or your Batman or something like that in Injustice 2. That was an awesome mechanic, so if it translates over to Mortal Kombat, it could be really awesome. Mortal Kombat games are just good, clean fun, and by clean, I mean not at all, but still. That should definitely be coming this year, and we will be playing it. But over to number 12, we have The Division 2, which, The Division was an interesting game that disappointed a lot of people, but it also found quite a dedicated fan base, similar to something of a similar nature like Destiny. This is a loot and shoot games as a service game designed to keep you playing, and whether you like that or not, we are getting another one, and this time it takes place in a fully designed Washington, D.C., which honestly looks to be a pretty interesting environment for shooting stuff. Also, it looks like they are paying attention and really taking care of the PC version, which is nice. It's dropping for everything, including Xbox One, on March 15th, 2019. Next at number 11, we have Far Cry New Dawn, which interestingly enough spins off of one of the endings of Far Cry 5 and takes it to a whole post-apocalyptic, funky, bright-colored setting. And we have been seeing a lot of this, so I think Far Cry has to do a lot to stand out. I think maybe the Far Cry formula will do pretty well in a post-apocalyptic setting, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. It could be pretty awesome, especially if you're still clamoring for more Far Cry 5, and thankfully you don't have to wait too far into 2019 for it. That'll be February 15th, 2019. Cancel your Valentine's Day plans. Now coming down to the final 10, we have Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. This is From Software's new game, which is definitely straying from the typical Dark Souls formula that they are legendarily known for. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice looks to be a little bit more of a linear sequence with a tighter narrative and just generally an action-adventure game. It is going to have a skill tree to level up, and you get new abilities and do cool new things in the environment, but this is very much an action game through and through, and less so of an RPG. But we're really excited because we think that From Software wouldn't set out to make a game like this unless they think they could really do something awesome with it. So while it may not be Dark Souls in formula, we are totally excited to see what they're cooking up. We'll find out what the deal is on March 22nd, 2019. But speaking of what the deal is, next at number 9, we got Kingdom Hearts 3, a game that is like a badillion years in the making, and now we're finally getting it. And if you like Kingdom Hearts, hopefully this makes you happy. January 25th, 2019 is the final release date. It's not moving any further. It's got lots of crazy new worlds in it, like Toy Story and Pirates of the Caribbean. And if you are a Kingdom Hearts fan out there, we're speaking to you directly in that we hope it lives up to your expectations. There's really not much more to be said about it, honestly. But moving over to number 8, we have Resident Evil 2. This remake, reimagining of the beloved Resident Evil classic looks really awesome. And you get Leon, you get Claire, you get Raccoon City in a zombie apocalypse, and it looks like it's a lot of fun, and it's scary. Believe it or not, this one is designed not to be a complete one-to-one remake of the original Resident Evil 2 that I love so much. This is actually apparently designed to surprise old fans while bringing in new ones. And new ones are going to have a great time because Resident Evil 2 is where the whole Umbrella Resident Evil lore really goes buck wild, so buckle up. This might be one of the biggest games of the year, and it's dropping at the end of January. At number 7, we have Metro Exodus, which takes the Metro formula from Last Light and gives it a little bit more of an open world setting. The game revolves around a train that goes around from place to place. Artyom and his wife are there, and they're adventuring out of the wastelands through Russia. And thanks to the disaster of the war, all these environments have a lot of variety to them, and some of them are fairly large. Will that be enough to make a Metro game feel fresh? If anything, does a Metro game really need to feel fresh? Does it need open world conventions? Who knows? Still, it looks cool, and it looks fairly unique. The Metro games always have been, and we'll be able to play this one on February 15th, 2019. Next at number 6, we have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, the Star Wars EA game that has been announced, but we don't really know anything about it other than its name, and that it is definitely coming this year. It says it on the official website. The big thing, the most exciting thing, is that it's being developed by Respawn Entertainment, the masterminds behind the awesome and criminally underrated Titanfall games. Who knows what the hell this game is really going to be like? Is it going to be another Star Wars disappointment from EA holding the license? We don't know, but since we like Star Wars, we're still holding on to hope. Because that's like the whole thing with Star Wars, right? It's a hope. See what I did there? I don't know. I'm sorry. Next at number 5, if we're getting into Microsoft exclusives, let's talk about Ori and the Will of the Wisps. This is the follow-up to Ori and the Blind Forest, and that game was incredibly awesome. It was a very charming, inventive, creative platformer that had a lot of heart, but was also kind of old school and challenging in the same way. And Will of the Wisps seems to be following up that whole thing with a whole different look, new characters and stuff like that. Embracing more Metroidvania elements, it's gonna have the same Soul Link type elements from the previous game. And I gotta say, the story and the world they got going on here just seems really interesting. I wanna know more, and thankfully we'll find out in 2019. Now at number 4, we have Devil May Cry 5. It is so awesome to be getting a new Devil May Cry game in 2019, and to have it on Xbox is also awesome for you Xbox fans out there, because Devil May Cry is awesome. That's really the gist of it. Devil May Cry 5 is adding a ton of new characters alongside Nero and Dante, who seem to be the focus here. And just from what we have seen from gameplay and stuff like that, it looks awesome. It looks like more Devil May Cry. Apparently the campaign is going to be like roughly 15 to 17 hours, which if you've played a Devil May Cry game, you know that's just right in line. I'm not looking for an open world action adventure game from this. I'm looking for a Devil May Cry game, goddammit, and it seems like we're getting one. March 8th, 2019 will be the day that we finally get to play more Devil May Cry. As an old school fan of the series, I'm looking forward to it a lot, and I hope you are too. But next at number 3, we have Gears 5, the follow-up to Gears of War 4, which kind of served as a bit of a reboot or refresh of the series. While we still got Marcus Phoenix, it focused more around Marcus Phoenix's son and his friends and stuff like that. And Gears 5 is continuing to make good on that, with Gears 5 focusing more around Kate Diaz, who has a very interesting family lineage that ties into the whole Gears of War saga, and it's about her kind of figuring that all out. Gears 4 was good. It didn't blow the doors down, but I thought it was a solid entry in the series that changed things up a little bit. We'll see where Gears 5 goes with it, but honestly, if anything, as an Xbox One owner, it's nice to just have another Gears of War game. Once again, this is being developed by the Coalition, a group that was designed specifically to develop these newer Gears games, and we'll find out for sure, hopefully in 2019. It has no definitive release date, but 2019 is the year. Now at number 2, we have Crackdown 3, a game after many, many delays is finally dropping February 15th, 2019. It's the return of the beloved classic Xbox franchise that myself and Falcon and a lot of people really enjoyed. Open world, superhero action, destruction. There has been a lot of talk about this one, a lot of controversy, a lot of delays, a lot of waiting, but we're hoping, if anything, it's just a fun, regular old-fashioned Crackdown game. Can it really live up to the massive anticipation people have lumped on it? Who knows? But Sumo Digital and Microsoft Studios are finally getting this game out there, and apparently the multiplayer destruction wrecking zone mode is really impressive, and we can't wait to get our hands on that as well. And thankfully, we don't have to wait too much longer. But coming down to number 1, we have The Outer Worlds, a more recently announced game that we didn't expect to be so high on our list, but we can't help but be excited. It's being developed by Obsidian, and this is very, very much an Obsidian game. While this one isn't necessarily a Microsoft exclusive, so to speak, what we get here is Obsidian in their best form, making a game that is kind of like a Fallout game. They were famous, of course, for New Vegas, and this is a completely new space adventure built from the ground up by them, and there's not too much to say about it other than that the exploration, the combat, the character designs, the graphics, all looks really awesome. And as huge RPG fans here, this is just really something we're looking forward to. As of right now, it is slated for 2019. If the game does need more time, it can take it, but we would be so excited to see it come out this year. And since we're on that, as like a bonus game included, we do want to mention Cyberpunk 2077, because you guys would freak out if it wasn't on this list. We don't know for sure if it's going to drop in 2019. The developers have been saying that it's still got a lot of work to be done. We don't know for sure though. 2019 could be the year for it. Either way, we just wanted to give it a mention because we talked about so many games here, we might as well cover them all. Those are 40 games you should look forward to playing on your Xbox One this year in 2019. We would love to hear from you guys in the comments what games you're looking forward to the most, so be sure to leave us your own top 10 or your own top 5 or whatever you want down there. If you enjoyed this video and learned about a game or two, clicking the like button will really help us out. We really appreciate it. And if you are new, you should consider subscribing because we put out new videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.